Hello, HMOers. Great to be with you again. This is the Thursday Wendy Weekly slot, so I'm really pleased to be with you. And today I've got a great guest on the show because he is my business partner, Ian McBain. And Ian's got a great story about his growth in HMOs, his growth of his business, how he got out of his job. And, I thought that, maybe you might not know Ian, you perhaps don't know his story. So this would be a really good time to just share what he's learned, what he's been doing recently with his HMO portfolio. And also if you're in that position of maybe teetering on getting involved in HMOs or investing so that you can give up your job, I think you'll find Ian's journey really inspirational. So Ian, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Delighted to be here as always, Wendy. It's great.
Absolutely. Well, it's great to have you here today. And what I would say is that if anyone's got questions or comments that they like to put, please feel free to put them in the chat panel below, and we'll both answer them and help you with any of your HMO queries that you might have right now. So Ian, I just want to kind of get started really with you. So can you kind of take us back a few years? What were you doing? I mean, I don't know, when did you first start investing in HMOs? Let's start there.
2011. So 9 years ago, yeah. Okay. So if people haven't, followed me before, I think when I was in the fire service in Essex, and when I wanted to leave my job, I was going to do the buy, refurbish, refinance model on buy-to-lets. Of course, when I did the first one, it took so long, and I was thinking, the net cash flow. I worked out I would probably need about a dozen of these to kind of replace my salary. And of course, when Dad and myself, I worked with my dad in business and the property business, and when we did our first HMO, I think the cash flow from that was £1,000. So, split two ways was like 500 each. So I was thinking I wouldn't need too many of these to kind of replace my salary. So the beauty of investing in HMOs, of course, as you know, is the multiple streams of income, the legacy, and the cash flow. Cash flow is king, isn't it? In any business. Exactly. So I think if you want to get started, in property, HMOs is a good place to start. But of course, if you've got a couple of buy-to-lets under your belt, or even a buy-to-let, it's good experience in managing a tenant before you take on more tenants. But at the minute, demand is strong. We've built a great business.
All right. Well, listen, we'll come on to that. I still want to delve deep a bit further into your background. So you were working for the fire service, and what I remember you telling me a really, interesting story about how you gave up the job, because I think for a lot of people, we've been educated to have our education, get a good job, pay off our mortgage. So leaving your job must have kind of left you in this, I don't know, maybe a dilemma, or did you ever feel fearful about it? What were your feelings at that time, and how did you overcome that?
Absolutely fearful. The acronym for fear is false evidence appearing real, isn't it? And you think, this is a nightmare. But I'd actually, I've always been fairly ambitious, and the way that the fire service was going, and I was going to have to work longer and pay more in my wages, and I was going to get less back, and that just wasn't attractive. And I was thinking, someone else is in control of my destiny. So what I actually did, and this might help some of the listeners today, I wrote a goal out to the chief fire officer. So I got a letter and I said, "Dear Chief, it was nice working for you, blah, blah, blah." And I dated that 12 months in advance, and I stuck it up in my fridge door. And then every day when I got up and I went to get the milk for my cornflakes out the fridge, I saw this letter in the door, and I thought, and I handed the letter in 11 months. So, having that visual thing there, and it just gives you any time that you've got time off in the evening, time off in the day, time off in the weekends, you should be working on your side hustle, I think they call it, isn't it, to build up enough income. And then what I would encourage people to do, though, if they are leaving, is make sure you're mortgageable, and at the minute, try and replace your current salary while you're still working in your job. That is an easier way to do it, but you maybe like risk like I do. And I think if you've, they say it in folklore, don't they? When Vikings went to raid a certain town, they would burn their ships or burn the boats or burn their bridges, which is a kind of military term. I think when you burn your bridges, that's when you're at your best. But of course, what stops you burning your bridges, of course, is fear. So having a family, supporting your wife or your kids or your husband, kids going through school, and you think all these things in your mind, you think, oh, I better just stay in my job. But you don't know your true potential. That's the kind of thing in all this. It's only when you're out of your comfort zone. I think you've said it before, Wendy, isn't it? When you're out of your comfort zone, that's when you're at your best, because you've got nothing else to fall back on. It's either make or break, sink or swim. So it's been tough and it's been challenging, but overall I would say it's been rewarding. And the way the future's been shaped at the minute, we don't know what's going to happen in the next few years. So I think being in control of your own destiny at the minute, it's a great time to start a business or become an entrepreneur or park your money in a vehicle that's going to pay you each month.
So you invest with your dad, so Ian McBain Jr., invest with Ian McBain Senior.
Yeah.
It'd be great to get him on sometime. You know, I love your dad. He's absolutely great. He's got a great personality, and he's also extremely well educated and knowledgeable about property. So it'd be great to have Mr. Senior on at some point. So tell me, what's it like working in a family business? What are the ups and what are the downs?
I think in the early days, so I'll just add here that my sister is part of the business as well. So she left corporate world and she's involved in the business too. So I think in the early days, we were all guilty of doing the same thing. So to give you some examples, we would all turn up on site talking to the builder, and you think, why are we doing this? And then having a switch off time. So, when you're in a business, you go to that business, don't you? And then you come home and that's you technically switched off. Well, it's different when you own your own business, because you can work whenever you want to. And if you don't set important guidelines, then quickly your business eats into your leisure time as well. So we quickly established that who was good at what, and then defining those roles and saying, right, Lindsay, at the minute, you're good with people and you can manage the tenants. In the early days, I was charged with raising the investor finance. So Dad found the properties, I found the money, and my sister Lindsay found the tenants effectively, in a kind of shortened way. That was it, to keep it simple and clean. And then as the roles have developed and as our business has developed, we've implemented some. So, when we're in family time, there's no business talk. And the business closes at 5 p.m, of course, unless there's an emergency. So understanding what you're good at and giving that person that role, and of course letting that person do their role without getting involved in it yourself. So, but it is good. We all got on well.
Okay, so have you ever had a time when you maybe clashed or when you had a conflict, and how did you resolve it?
Great question. So we've had some conflicts, as you might, but my kind of top 3 tips on it is just communication is key. So, look, I've made a mistake here. I'm holding my hands up. Can you help me? What have I done wrong? But other times we've maybe disagreed on, where the position of something would be, and we'll talk through it. Actually, technology, so like using your phone. So before COVID, Dad used to go to Mallorca quite a lot, and we used to do WhatsApp video calls. So I'd be on site showing him and saying, what do you think of this? But it's very hard to kind of visualise. But being clear and concise and saying, look, this is my role, don't you get involved in it, leave it up to me. But there is dangers, because you hear of families falling out, don't you? I know to a father and son that started working together recently, and after 3 months of arguments, they kind of gave up. So I think if you've got that type of relationship with your family, it's probably not worth setting up in business with them. But if you've got a good relationship, of course, Dad's been in property for 31 years. So he's a lot more experienced than I do. So he's tried to pass a legacy on to his kids. And of course, Lindsay and myself have got roped into the business, and now he's sitting at home and we're doing all the work.
He's planning his next Mallorca trip, isn't he?
Exactly. He's planning his next Mallorca trip, but he's been a landlord for over 31 years, and he's pretty well experienced in all the stuff that goes wrong in a business over the years. You know, people owing you money, things going wrong, things costing more, costing less, getting broken, involving the courts, evictions, everything. We've probably seen it all, to be fair. Nothing surprises you when you're a landlord.
So that's great that you've got, and it's called Estuary Living, isn't it?
Yeah.
Estuary Living. So it's really good that you've got those temperaments that allow you to get on together, and have obviously built a very successful and profitable HMO business, which is fantastic. So what I'd like to know, though, Ian, from you is, what would you consider to be your best deal?
It's a good question. I think one of our very first professional HMOs that we did, and the reason I'm just going to call this the best deal for now, is we felt that we kind of raised the bar in the local area. So we looked at all the rooms that were available. We went to a few letting agents and said, look, this is what we want. I think at the time, for an en-suited room in Southend, and this is just a key marketing example, the letting agent said, look, you can get 550, and we said, look, we want more than that. And they said, well, you won't get it. So anyway, we built this 5-bed HMO, and it was pretty run down. You've been there, Wendy, and we've built it. And since 2015, the dearest room at the time was 695, which was the front bedroom. All the rooms were en-suited, and we get 695 for that room. Now, if we'd have listened to the, so although the actual cash flow from that is not as good as some of my others, the reason I'm saying it's the best deal is because it put Estuary on the map, if you like, because we realised then that there was a market, and two, when you know what your customers want and you can give them to it. And it was a real, when we got it done and people were walking in saying, wow, this is amazing, well, I'll just have the room. It's a bit more expensive, but I love it. And we're thinking, this is fantastic. So I think, although, we left some funds in most of our deals as we do, the cash flow in that's around about £1,500 a month, which is, it's not far off the average UK salary, but it just put us in the map in terms of who our USP was, what our ideal customer was, and if you create a high-end product, what you can actually attract. So I would say, from a kind of personal experience, it was that one.
So it did something more than just create an HMO, didn't it? It sounds like what it did was kind of embed your brand. It kind of put you on the map in terms of having a brand, having a quality standard that you launched and you reached, and it gave people an idea of what Estuary Living was all about. How important do you think that is for other HMO investors?
I think it's huge. I think there is a military term called dominate your ground, and the military come in and they set up a stronghold, and then they just start to kind of take over the town. And I always feel in anything in life, I think when you look at, not this just doesn't apply to HMOs, but there's always some product or service out there better. And we just felt that we were better. And I think when you have a quality product, your clients see that when they walk in, and they think, oh, these people care about the property and the standard of it. They look after it longer. It does cost you a little bit more to get the works carried out, but you get higher rents and you get longer term tenants. So it's like less void. So it's like a no-brainer. That property I'm talking about went live in 2015. Do you know what we went back there to do in 5 years? One light bulb. And the hob, they said the hob was, one of the hobs was faulty. We put 2 hobs in it in the kitchen, and one of it had a parent lock on it. And we went down and looked at it, and it had actually locked the hob, and they couldn't heat anything up. So in 5 years.
Wow.
So we've, so going in there and spending the money and fitting it out. Yeah, and the tenants look after it. And I think as well, you're not a flash in the pan. If you're building a sustainable, we talk about this quite a lot, Wendy, don't we? It's a HMO, a profitable HMO business. So to have a profitable HMO business, you've got to do the quality work up front, look after your customers when they're living in your properties, and of course, that looks after your profit, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It future-proofs it, doesn't it? You've created a future-proofed HMO. You put in the work and the effort up front, but now you're reaping the rewards, and it becomes a long-term cash machine, doesn't it?
Exactly. And it's interesting as well that, I don't know if you want me to share it now or a little bit later about, kind of managing your costs, because I do believe that as much as you can build a profitable business, it's not all about the cash flow. It's about looking after, your utilities and managing your energy, and, does your energy performance. We talk about future-proofing, don't we? So upgrading your windows, your loft insulation, fitting smart heating controls, LED bulbs, all of that on a rewire. So we've fitted loads of good stuff that increases our energy rating and our EPC certificate. But what comes into play is managing your accounts like monthly. So one good tip that you might want to implement if you're not doing this now is get a monthly profit and loss statement for each property. And a bookkeeper can easily create this for you. But if you're starting out, you might want to just create a simple spreadsheet. And then you'll add up each month what the gas and electric is. Submit your meter readings unless you've got smart meters. And then you get accurate, up-to-date reporting. So it's timely that we've jumped on the call today, because I've actually got a real-life example on my desk.
Brilliant! Let's see it.
So there's so here is. So if we look here, look at the water usage over here, right?
Yeah.
And then if we look at the front, look how much a month for the water bill, all right? And then that's a 6-bed HMO. And then we look at this one, look, the second property. Wow. So that's £12. Now, these figures might not mean a lot when you start out doing this, but when you go to scale, and certainly if you go into like kind of double figures with HMOs, certainly I think a first goal for people is like kind of 50 rooms. I think once you hit kind of 50 rooms, you need to be keeping an eye every month in your numbers. Why is there a difference of £30 odd in our water supply? So then we need to get our admin to call up and find out why that's different and the meter reading's accurate. And then it turns out that they're saying, well, we might have a leak here at this property. So if you don't track that, then of course you're losing money every month. So it's just simple things. So every month, but actually your bookkeeper can track this. So if it's called a nominal roll activity, so you get your profit and loss, which is one page, you flick to the back page, which is nominal roll, and it tells you gas, electric, water, and you just compare it month on month. And if one's like really high, so I do believe, I know this is a bit long-winded now to get to the actual answer, but I do believe the secret to running a profitable HMO business at scale is managing your rents well and managing arrears well, but managing your costs well. So is the electricity been left on? Is the heating been left on? Or all the lights been left on? So, fitting switches where it's on a timer delay and the lights go off after 5 minutes, or the heating can't be left on overnight. There's all these smart controls that you can fit So,
well, I've got a similar story. I mean, last year we were looking at our broadband costs across the portfolio, which seemed to be just going up and up and up and up and up. And we went online to have a look at, we've got a mixture of Virgin and BT, and went online to have a look at the current deals, and they all looked okay, but nothing really special. So I phoned up the supplier, I phoned BT and said, listen, what can you do? And they said, oh yeah, our best rates actually aren't on the website. If you are a portfolio landlord and you've got more than 5 accounts, we can give you a special deal. And literally that one phone call saved us about £180 a month, because immediately they slashed all those broadband deals, gave us discount on, I can't remember, maybe it's about 14 properties. And immediately we got the benefit of having a better broadband deal with BT. So it's definitely worth paying attention to this, because you could be losing hundreds of pounds a month if you don't do this. And in fact, this is something that we go into a bit more depth on our 2-day training, when we talk about future proofing and we talk about how to create those systems and how to create that methodology so that you don't have to do this yourself, you get somebody else to do it, and how to make sure that you're not paying all your profits to somebody else to doing it. And we've got some really nifty, neat little tips and tricks that we can help people with. And we've got our last 2-day training coming up in December. So if anyone's interested, please just message me or put a message in the chat panel. We'll send you some details of that 2-day event. But we go into all of this in a lot more detail. I know you've got some brilliant examples, Ian, of things that have gone wrong, and then you've brought them back from the brink. And other just really good ideas about how to, manage your project. Now, on that note, I know what you're smiling at.
I know.
There is a particular deal I want to ask you about, but I'm not going to put the words in your mouth. So what I'd like to know, we've talked about your best deal and why it was your best deal and why that worked so well for you. What's been your worst deal?
I don't know if you've ever heard me talking about it, Wendy. Yeah, so the airport build, the world famous airport build, I think the Guinness Book of Records were ready to come out. It took so long. But it was funny because a lot of good lessons came out of it. No matter how experienced you are, then things can throw up challenges, can't they? So to give you a quick overview of the actual deal itself, it was a 3-bed house on a corner plot with a double garage, and we wanted to turn it into a 7-bed HMO. We offered on it start of January 2018. Our offer got declined and they sold it to someone else, and then the sale fell through. And then we went back in and we offered again, and he sold it to someone else and the sale fell through. And then in July 2018, we finally had an offer accepted. And then from July 2018, the banks asked us for every inside leg measurement, and they finally agreed to lend us the money in the December. So it took nearly 6 months to get a mortgage on it, asking us for this, that, limited company. Anyway, we got the mortgage. It started, so we've done what's called a bridge to let product. So they give you 70% of the money up front, if you like, to do the build. So we started doing a bridge to let, and the bridge and loan product ran for 12 months. And of course, we started in January, and I think by March we had the part of the house, there was a 3-bed house, so we converted that part that was existing. And the new part, which was the double garage, we knocked that down and we'd submitted plans for the 7-bed. And of course, it got knocked back. The footprint was too big. They wanted 6. We appealed it. We said, no, we want 7. That process took 10 months. So October 2019, we still had a finished 3-bed HMO on one side. And then the left-hand side with just a hole dug in the ground. And we just, when I say argued, we never argued, but we just had issue after issue. Eventually they accepted the plan in October 2018. and they gave us some like 20 conditions that we had to adhere to. There was some existing trees in the ground, and they wanted them kept, and they wanted this tree cut down and a new tree put in. It took forever. And of course, going through the winter, you're governed by the weather, aren't you? So we had to put, what's called a tin hat. So we had to put scaffold up and put the kind of plastic sheeting around the scaffold with a corrugated roof on it. That was expensive. That cost about $7,000 to do that. And of course, the council kept saying, you can't do this, you can't do that. And we're thinking, well, we're on this bridge now, and we're getting close to the bridge ending. So we called them up and said, are we able to extend it? And they said, look, we don't like extending it, but because we know you, we'll extend it once. So it get extended from January 2020 to March 2020, and then we know what happened in March 2020, don't we? Something came across from Wuhan, worse than the planning. Yeah. And the site was closed. So it turned into the longest build in history, the longest bridging loan in history. And at some points, when we were in lockdown, full lockdown, the builders that we had decided that they weren't going to come back and work like, a plasterer 1 week, a painter the next week. So we ended up having to call in some trades that we use, and we managed to get it done, but it was a bit disjointed. We couldn't get materials. Every single challenge that came along, it was crazy. So what we actually did, which was a bit of a brainwave, I have to say, from when we sat down as a family and we brainstormed what we were going to do. But we spoke to the lender, and we spoke to the council, and we said, look, we've got one half of the house that's complete. Can we rent the 3 rooms out? Now, of course, you've got site safety and Harris fencing and pathways and all this stuff to put in. So to get it signed off, the old part of the building, and then we were allowed to rent the 3 rooms out. And what we did was the people that stayed there, we did them a reduced rent just so we could cover the bridging cost.
Right.
So actually we went to cost neutral, but it dragged on, and it was just stressful phoning the lender up and saying, we need to extend the bridge. We need to extend the bridge. And then they were saying, well, why is it not wind and weather tight and watertight? Well, we ordered a door 14 weeks ago and we still don't have it. So it was like, we can't get fascia boards, can't get soffits. It was a nightmare. And then I think at the end, hopefully I'm not boring you all too much with the sob story, but I think towards the end, we showed tremendous resilience to get it done, because ultimately what are you going to do with a half-finished project? The only thing it would happen to if you defaulted on it was, one, your business would sink, so would your reputation, and you could probably only run it through an auction. So we just thought, right, let's get the thing done. Now, of course, they came out to switch us off the bridge pre-COVID, and they said to us, look, we reckon that commercially this will value up about 440. And we thought, well, we'll be happy with that. That's fine. So because of COVID and the site being shut and it dragged on about, this is in September now. So September just passed, yes, 2020. It's just dragging on. We phoned up the valuer and said, look, can you come out and sign it off now, because we've had all the works done? And they said, no, we need to go through another valuation. And we said, what do you mean? And he said, but it's dragged on too long. We said, but it's been shut, the site's been closed, we can't get materials. But we're in COVID. And he said, no, we want another valuation. So they charged us $1,500 for the first valuation. So we phoned up and we're making a bit of a song and dance about it and complaining. This is when it pays to have a good broker. Our broker fought our corner and he said, look, these are good clients of ours. And we agreed on £1,000. So the guy came out with a mask on and the gloves, and we had to leave all the doors open, and we got the place done, and it was looking amazing, I have to say. But it was stressful because we were wondering, is it going to get downvalued? But of course, the valuation came in at 80,000 more than what the guide came back and valued it in January. So would you take another 80 grand?
Wonderful.
For paying an extra $1,000. So really, the kind of truth in the matter is here, and the important lesson for anyone watching this is, see, when you've got your brand and you've got your business and you've got your values, they're everything. You stick to your guns. We got the thing done. We got the reward. You what I've seen is, I was doing a jig when the guy came in and he said, my broker phoned us up and said, are you sitting down? And I said, don't tell me it's bad. He said, I think you better lie down. I was thinking, oh, is it bad? Is it bad? And he goes, Ian, it came in at 520. I was thinking, you're unreal. So we actually broke the record for a 6-bed commercially in the town. So we've raised the bar in 2015 and we've done it again.
Fantastic. And that just goes to show, I always heard that in a business, what you have is 3 things. If you imagine a triangle, you've got your brand, you've got your product, and you've got your distribution network. And if you have all 3, then you have a very strong business. So if you've got a very strong brand, so people recognize you and know you, if you've got a really strong network or distribution network, so there's lots of people who know about you and want to know about you and want to buy your stuff, that's brilliant. And you also need a really strong product. Now, in your business, in Estuary Lettings, it showed that having a strong brand was really important, because you were able to deliver a product, which is the other part of the triangle, which met that, met the kind of requirements of the brand. I suppose in terms of distribution, it would be probably using somebody else's distribution network, like Spare Room or Open Rent or Gumtree, to rent out your rooms. But having those 2 corners of the triangle fixed is really powerful. And it just shows that actually, despite all those, gut-wrenching moments, Ian, which I lived through with you, sort of, viewing your ups and downs, your highs and lows about this project. But, coming out the back end of it and coming out with such a great value really is testament to your perseverance and the power of that brand and of that product that you've created.
Exactly. And it was just like a nice reward, because we'd been hit with every challenge. I mean, I heard a great saying before. Someone said that property deals are like haircuts. If you get a bad haircut, it grows out over time. And we've been upvalued in some, and we've been downvalued on others. But over the term, so Dad's been doing this 31 years, and all his properties have only gone one way, and that's up. And of course, some of the stuff that, even you and I, we've been comparing some of our deals, haven't we, where in the last few years, you're like that. Look, I refinanced that and I had to leave money in it. And 2 years later, I refinanced it and I pulled money out it. So just over the course of the time, it's not get rich quick, but it just pays to be in it to win it for the long term. And it goes back to...
Sorry, carry on.
I was just going to say, it goes back to when you say you're burning your boats. You've got no fallback. You've got the property. You need to get it finished. You've not got a job to distract you. This is my business. How am I going to make this work? And when you're at your lowest ebb, you're at your best. I think
that's so true. That's often when that I'm keen on running and do quite a lot of running, and it's sometimes in the middle of a run where you think, oh, I really want to go back home. Oh, I really want to go and get coffee. Oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I'm not really warmed up yet. 6 miles in, I'm not really warmed up yet. What? You must be joking. But actually, that's the time when you've got to dig in. That's the time when it's hard, when you're feeling tired, your form goes, your breathing goes. And that's the time to go, actually, I can do this. I'm going to have to. And on some of my longer runs, I might only be halfway through at 6 miles. So, you've got another 6 miles to go. You've got to do it. There's, otherwise I'll be stuck out in the Cheshire countryside. Who's going to come and rescue me? Nobody. I've got to run home. And actually, that is a really good mindset to have, to think I've got nothing else to fall back on. I've got to make this happen. And which you did, which is great. So listen, I know you've got to go in a moment, Ian. So I just want to ask you one final question. What do you think are your key learning points from this time that you've been investing in property and investing in HMOs? What are the biggest learning points for you that might help other people who are, at a different stage in their journey?
That's a great question. And I think, working with either business partners or mentors or people that have walked the path before, you and I have invested heavily in our education, haven't we, over the years? And I think even having yourself as a sounding board, because we've got mentoring clients, haven't we, and we help them through it. I think for myself, that was quite key in growing the portfolio. Now, going to someone that was like an expert and saying, right, what is it I need to do? You can read books and you can watch YouTube and all that. That's all great. But actually walking a mile in someone else's shoes that's done it, I think for me, that's been one of my kind of biggest things, seeing other people doing it. And then they say, look, this has happened and that's happened. And all the things that they told me came true. But I think another good thing that you mentioned was about your running, and I like fitness as well. I think keeping your body fit and your mind fit definitely help you in business, and having a kind of clear set of goals. So, a lot of people, I just read this last night, actually. I used to be business coached by the Action Coach franchise. So Brad Sugars is the owner. And he said a lot of people, desire to kind of change their life, but not many people are willing to put in the effort to kind of build it. And I think, having someone that can G you along, we all need accountability. All the best people in the world have got coaches or, a mentor or someone kind of handholding them. For myself, I'm quite a hungry learner. I like reading books, podcasts, and obviously chatting to yourself. So having like-minded kind of business people and business partners, if you're in a relationship or you're in a room where you're not the smartest person, I know it sounds cliched, but if you want, when I joined forces with you had 3 times a bigger business than I did. So what happens to my business when I start working with someone with a bigger business? My business improves and my business gets bigger. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I built a business before, which I built up and I sold it, and it took me 7 years to get the systems in place. Now, that's because, 1, I'm not very good at systems, but 2, it's a long slog, and it just cuts all that down if you can join someone else that's already done it. So your IP now and my IP put together, for anyone else starting an HMO business, we've got everything that you need, which is phenomenal. So I think if you're going to start it in an HMO business, you should definitely think about getting someone to help coach you along that's been there, done it, and wore the t-shirt. So me and Wendy both share that we have made lots of mistakes, but we've got lots of experience, and we're here to tell you that, yeah, we done this and it went wrong. This is what not to do. So they say
learn from somebody else's mistakes, not from your own.
Exactly. So I would say that, I think if you're going to be starting out in your journey and you wanted to, yes, you can go and do it yourself. Of course, people build businesses by themselves, but some of the best businesses I've seen have got a great coach as well. So I would think it's always worth investing,
Yeah,
such a small amount.
Well, I think also you and I are good working together. I mean, I've also learned a lot from you, Ian, and I've, it's been great fun working together. And I think sometimes property can be a bit of a lonely business if you're doing it on your own. And there are lots of successful partnerships out there, and you've got a successful family business, so it can be done. But it's sometimes if you're starting out on your own, you're doing it on your own. I think the benefit of working with somebody else who's more experienced or is coaching or mentoring you is that actually you don't feel so lonely either. You feel like you've got somebody you can pick up the phone to, who can answer some queries and questions. You can jump on a Zoom call, and you can, it might not be that you have an awful lot from time to time. A lot of the time things might be fairly routine and working well, but occasionally you're going to have a big issue or problem, and where are you going to take it? And I would completely endorse what you're saying, that for me, having a business coach is vital to being able to keep my mindset straight, my priorities correct, and my head in the game. And that's really, really helped me building up my property business, very, very much so. So
yeah, I would agree. Absolutely.
Great. Well, listen, partner.
No problem. Lovely chat.
I hope you have a great afternoon. Thank you very much for your time today, Ian. It's great to have you on, and great for people to hear about your story and your background as well, how you achieved it, and to show somebody else's success in property. It's always a very powerful story to know that somebody's changed their life. And I hope you haven't gone from being a firefighter to being another firefighter. Well,
I have did some firefighting in the business along the way, that has to be said. But you do in any business when you start out, don't you? You need to put in the work at the front end, not to do the work at the back end.
Absolutely.
But it's a slow burn. It's getting there.
You're the fire chief telling all the other firefighters what to do.
Yeah, exactly.
Great. Lovely. Thanks ever so much,
Okay,
Ian.
no worries. See you soon. Bye.